Picture this. You are crouched in the corner of a freezing stone hut in the middle of a medieval winter, your bare feet pressed into straw damp with last night's frost. The fire has gone out, but you dare not move. In your hand, you clutch a rough linen pouch filled with a mixture of dried herbs, pennyroyal, tansy, and something that smells unmistakably of rot. The scent is acrid, oily, clinging to your skin long after you let go. Your heart hammers as you remember your mother's warning. Never let anyone see you with these. Not the priest, not your husband, not even your closest friend. If you fail, it's your life on the line. You squeeze the pouch until your fingers ache, feeling the tiny seeds shift inside. The memory of last month's blood, absent now, late, drums in your mind with a panic that outpaces reason. You force yourself to swallow a pinch of the bitter powder, the taste burning all the way down. Your mouth floods with saliva as you fight the urge to gag. The room swims before your eyes, the stale air thick with smoke and the sour tang of animal bedding. Every second that passes is a gamble. Did you take enough? Did you take too much? Will it work, or will it kill you first? A sudden knock at the door shatters the silence. You freeze, breath caught in your throat, pulse roaring in your ears. The footsteps outside are heavy, boots on mud, muffled curses, the sound of a man's voice raised in impatience. Is it your husband returned early from the fields? Or has the priest come on another of his unannounced visits? You remember the neighbor who vanished last spring, accused of witchcraft after a miscarriage and a whispered confession. No one ever spoke her name again. You imagine the noose, the flames, the shame that seeps into your bones long after the body is gone. You want to believe you are different, careful, discreet. But the truth is, every woman you know, young or old, married or not, has her own secret methods, recipes traded in whispers, desperate bargains made between darkness and dawn. The fear is not just of death, but of discovery. In this village, secrets rot faster than bodies. The church says to multiply, to accept suffering as God's will. But the graveyard behind the chapel is filled with women who tried to obey and died for it. If you get it wrong, you'll join them. But here's where the real nightmare begins. Think medieval contraception was simply a matter of harmless herbs and old wives' tales. Think again. The remedies you risk your life for are not gentle. They are poison, sometimes slow, sometimes swift, always unpredictable. For every unwanted pregnancy prevented, a dozen women will fall sick, bleed out, or slip away in fever dreams. Your mother knew it. Her mother knew it. You know it now, each time you measure out another lethal dose and hope you are not the one who's buried before the next moon. You can still taste the metallic bitterness on your tongue as you remember the stories. A cousin dead at 19, her insides blackened by lead. A friend who went mad from mercury, babbling prayers until she wasted away. These aren't distant tragedies. They are warnings, and you carry them in your marrow, knowing that no law, no prayer, no priest will protect you if you fail. The church calls every attempt at prevention a crime, an abomination, a sin against nature. But it does nothing to save the women who die bringing unwanted children into the world. The paradox is as sharp as the hunger in your belly. Damned if you try, doomed if you don't. Every evening, you watch the men leave for the tavern, their laughter echoing down muddy lanes. You see the priest at his window, tallying sins and souls, his gaze never quite meeting yours. Under the weight of so much scrutiny, the village women become experts in secrecy. Recipes are hidden in the hems of skirts, powders tucked beneath stones in the hearth, instructions passed as lullabies to daughters who will need them all too soon. You wonder if you'll live long enough to pass on your own version of the secret. Or will your name join the list of those who paid the price? But here's where it gets even darker. The church's grip is not just spiritual. It is physical, legal, inescapable. Every year, new edicts are posted on the church doors, warnings against wise women and midwives who meddle with God's plan. Punishments escalate. Fines become floggings. Suspicion becomes exile or worse. Yet desperation drives you back to the same deadly remedies, because the alternative, a child you cannot feed, a reputation you cannot salvage, a future you cannot survive, is worse than death. Historical records show the reach of this system. In the 12th century, a book known as the Trotula cataloged both church-approved and forbidden practices, blending the latest medical theory with ancient superstition. Lead, mercury, copper, even animal dung, each is touted as a potential cure, each a gamble with your life as the stake. Archaeologists in England have found the bones of women riddled with heavy metals, silent testimony to the deadly price of medieval contraception. You listen, half paralyzed by dread, as the church bells ring out across the fields. Each peal is a reminder that time is running out, not just for you, but for every woman forced into this deadly game. The line between survival and damnation is as thin as a thread and twice as likely to break. You close your eyes, taste the bitterness again, and wonder, will this be the night your secret saves you, or the night it seals your fate? But you're about to learn that the deadliest risks have only just begun. The taste of pennyroyal still burns your mouth as dawn creeps through the cracks in your cottage wall. Your stomach twists in agony, but you force yourself to rise. Survival demands it. Each movement feels like wading through water, your muscles heavy, your head pounding, every sense heightened by fear. Outside, the sky is a pale bruise, and the world is waking up. Somewhere, a rooster crows. You pull your shawl tighter, pressing a trembling hand to your abdomen, and pray that what you took last night won't kill you before it kills what's growing inside. You're not alone in this gamble. Across the village, women wake to the same dread. One, barely older than you, sits by her hearth, boiling a thick green liquid in an iron pot. Her child coughs in the corner, ignored. She mutters the instructions her mother whispered. Let the leaves steep until the water is black. Then drink before the sun rises. She knows what happens if she's caught. She's seen it before. The churchyard holds a fresh grave, unmarked, except for the wildflowers planted there in secret. You avert your eyes when you pass it, but everyone knows whose body lies beneath. A pounding at your door sends terror through your bones. You freeze, heart stuttering. It's only the neighbor's daughter seeking help. Her mother collapsed, blood pouring from between her legs after drinking a potion that smelled of bitter almonds and hope. You help carry her to bed, the two of you lifting dead weight, but the blood keeps coming. There's nothing you can do. The men will say it was God's judgment. The priest will call it witchcraft. But you know the truth. She was desperate, like you, desperate enough to risk everything. But these are the safer methods. Some women, too poor for herbs or midwives, try the old Roman trick. Insert a plug of wool soaked in vinegar or wine. Others make pessaries from honey and tree resin, following recipes scrawled in the margins of the trotula. They've heard the warnings, but the alternative is unbearable. Your friend Anna tells you of a woman who used a pebble, another who tried animal dung. Sometimes it works. More often, it leads to infection, fever, death. But here's where it gets even more horrifying. The village healer, rumored to have trained with Jewish and Moorish midwives, offers something stronger. A small lump of gray metal wrapped in oiled cloth. Push this inside and say nothing, she instructs. It will do what God won't. You know what it is. Lead. Anna tried it once, the pain so fierce she screamed through the night. She never bled again. Her hair fell out in clumps. Her mind turned strange. By winter, she was gone. They buried her beside the river. No prayers, no marker. Her secret went with her. But some are willing to risk even more. Mercury, copper, and antimony, metals prized by alchemists, find their way into medieval cures. You've heard stories of girls foaming at the mouth, their limbs twisting in agony, or lapsing into silence that no prayer can break. According to church records in 1315 Norwich, more women died from home remedies than from childbirth itself. Modern archaeologists uncover skeletons with blackened teeth and hollow bones, physical evidence of the poisons that were meant to save. Still, these are only the dangers you choose. The greater threat walks on two legs and wears the cassock of authority. You remember the time the priest came to your door, face grim, hands stained with ink from copying new laws. The decree was nailed to the church door the next morning. All who attempt to prevent conception, be they wives, healers, or midwives, shall be excommunicated, and if unrepentant, tried as heretics. The town crier's voice echoed through muddy streets. No one met your eyes for days. You heard whispers about Maria, who was accused of sorcerous interference after her third miscarriage. The priest claimed she consorted with demons. The villagers watched as her hair was shaved and her feet bled from walking the stones to the market square. No one stepped forward to help. She was gone by sunrise. Some say she was sent to the bishop's prison. Others say her body is buried beneath the gallows. All you know is that the women stopped sharing their secrets for months, terrorized into silence. But the punishments are not always public. Sometimes it's the slow erasure of trust, the unspoken threat of exile. You hear of a midwife who fled in the night, leaving behind only a trail of burned herbs and a single shoe. You know she'll try again somewhere else, under another name. The knowledge moves with her, deeper underground each time. For every healer lost, a new layer of secrecy is added. The recipes become more obscure, the risks more deadly. Your hands shake as you prepare another dose, this time for a younger cousin. Her face is pale, her lips bitten raw with worry. You tell her the truth. It might save you, or it might not. Either way, you can't speak of this. Not to your husband, not to your confessor, not even in your dreams. You say it like a blessing, but it feels more like a curse. You watch her swallow the brew, her eyes shining with a terror you know too well. But the worst consequences aren't always legal. Sometimes the remedy you choose doesn't work at all. You feel the first cramp, sharp and deep, but nothing happens. Days pass. Fever comes. You know the signs. Another failed attempt. You lie in bed, sweating and delirious, haunted by visions of all the women before you who tried and failed and paid with their lives. Each one thought she would be the lucky one. Right now, you're feeling the weight of these revelations about medieval birth control, the taste of fear, the stench of blood, the threat of punishment, and the growing realization that survival means risking everything. This discomfort you feel isn't just dread, it's recognition. If you want to continue confronting the truths history tried to bury, subscribe now and keep uncovering the hidden testimonies of women who gambled their lives against a system designed to silence them. Your journey into history's shadows is only beginning. As your fever breaks, you hear the church bells ring again, cold and distant. Another day, another chance for discovery, another risk. You wonder how many more will die before the truth is spoken aloud, before survival no longer means facing death in secret. But that day is not today. Not yet. You wake in the dark, sweat-soaked and trembling, haunted by dreams of iron tongs and black water. The fire has gone out. You listen for sounds outside. The footsteps of men returning from the tavern, the barking of hungry dogs, the whisper of the wind through broken shutters. Each sound could mean exposure. Each silence feels heavier than stone. Your body aches from the inside out, muscles cramping, the bitter taste of failed remedies still clinging to your tongue. There's no one to tell. In this world, a woman's secrets are her own burden until the day they're used against her. But you're not the only one. Word travels fast, sometimes in gasps, sometimes in shrill whispers, about what happened last night in the hut by the river. Marta, the blacksmith's wife, tried a new recipe, mugwort and rue boiled in cider, then drank as the moon reached its peak. Her daughter found her writhing in pain, blood pouring from between her legs, her lips blue with cold. By dawn, the priest called it God's punishment. Her neighbors dug a shallow grave, tossing in handfuls of wild garlic to mask the stench. No prayers, no marker, only the memory passed from woman to woman in urgent warning. It's the pattern you can't escape. The circle of women, wives, widows, daughters, and outcasts meets in the shadows, sharing what little they know. You take turns caring for the injured, cleaning blood from straw, burning ruined linens before the men return. You speak in code, trading herbs for headaches, teas for sleep, powders for restless dreams. Some nights you risk everything for a handful of juniper berries or a pinch of wormwood, smuggled from a peddler too afraid to name his source. But here's where it gets worse. The men in your life, fathers, husbands, brothers, never ask how you manage or why you never swell with child when food is scarce. Their world is built on silence, reinforced by power. The church tells them you are to be fruitful and obedient. Withdrawal is forbidden. Refusal is a sin. The law is on their side, the pulpit as well. If you die, it's God's will. If you survive, it's as if nothing ever happened. You carry the consequences alone. Yet it isn't only men who police these boundaries. Older women, racked with fear and guilt, enforce the rules as ruthlessly as any priest. A neighbor warns you, do what you must, but never let them see. The last midwife to speak openly was branded a witch. They shaved her head and sent her to the nunnery. She's never been seen again. The stories of vanished women are a kind of currency, a reminder that the price of failure is paid in flesh, not coin. Sometimes, even the remedies themselves betray you. The knowledge passed down is as much superstition as science. Jump backwards 7 times after sharing your husband's bed. Wear a weasel's testicle on a red string around your thigh. wash with wine, and pray to Saint Margaret. You do it all, just in case. The line between wisdom and desperation blurs as the risks multiply. Historical records from the 14th century confirm what you already know. In Rouen, a healer named Isabel was put on trial for selling sorcerous contraceptives. The court's verdict was swift. Her house burned, her tools confiscated, her body never found. The villagers speak her name in whispers, half in fear, half in longing for the knowledge that died with her. The church claims victory, but the women know better. They mourn quietly, hiding seeds in the folds of their dresses, passing recipes under threat of death. But here's where the horror deepens. Each death, each disappearance, forces the network further underground. Secrets become more tangled, more dangerous. You find yourself reciting the words by rote, not knowing which advice might save a life and which might end it. You see the pattern? Every time the church cracks down, the knowledge moves deeper into darkness. Every time a healer is lost, the risk to the next woman grows. The system feeds on fear, perpetuating its own silence. Your own body becomes a battlefield. The bleeding doesn't stop this time. You lie in a fever, the world shrinking to the sound of your heartbeat and the ache in your bones. No one comes. Your husband paces the yard, muttering about curses. The priest refuses to enter the house. In the end, it is your neighbor, the one who once warned you, who braves the door. She sits with you through the night, wiping your brow, whispering stories of her own mother's suffering, her own secret failures. But dawn brings only more loss. The young wife down the road, who took a remedy of lead and vinegar, doesn't wake. They call it female weakness. But you know the truth. You know it in your marrow. Every woman does. Yet the village carries on. Children run in the mud, men drink and joke. Priests write sermons about the dangers of female cunning. Only the women remember each story, each loss, each desperate gamble. You gather again in the darkness, voices hushed, eyes wide, hands holding tightly to the last scraps of forbidden knowledge. You wonder how many more will vanish before the secrets are lost entirely. But you also wonder how many will survive just a little longer because you dared to risk everything. What you don't know is that the next death will not be the last. The danger is growing. The old ways are slipping through your fingers, one secret, one life at a time. And the consequences of silence will soon become unbearable. You stare out the window, watching as the mist rolls through the fields, swallowing the chapel and graveyard. The village is quieter than usual. News travels faster than light, and today it brings only dread. At the manor, the noblewoman has summoned the town's only physician. She sits in her high-ceilinged chamber, silk sheets and warm bricks at her feet, while the doctor measures powders by candlelight. Powders brought by merchants from Italy, wrapped in parchment, labeled with Latin words you cannot read. You hear the servants gossip. Madam pays for safety, but even gold can't turn poison into a cure. Across the lane, your neighbor shivers in a one-room hut, her hands stained green from gathering wild herbs before dawn. She's too poor to pay for foreign medicine, too clever to rely on faith alone. Her knowledge is inherited, a patchwork of Jewish, Moorish, and pagan remedies, kept alive by whispers and the hidden work of midwives. Every leaf, every root carries risk. The church warns daily that these secrets corrupt the soul, that the women who pass them on deserve fire. Yet when another girl arrives in the night, clutching her stomach and sobbing, it's the wise women who answer, not the priest. But the cost is always highest for those with nothing to offer. The bishop's men arrive without warning. They seize the healer's jars, uproot her garden, burn her books in the center of the village. You watch as flames lick the last words from the pages, each recipe erased as if it never existed. The healer stands silent, face unreadable, as the crowd jeers, and the priest recites the charges: witchcraft, corruption of Christian women, trafficking in forbidden knowledge, no trial, no mercy. The next day she is gone, her cottage abandoned, her tools smashed and scattered in the mud. But here's where it gets worse. The church's wrath is not reserved for poor women alone. Across the border in Aragon, inquisitors record the arrest of Jewish and Muslim healers, accused of tempting Christian wives with their knowledge. The documents are clear. Let no woman escape judgment who uses these unholy means. Those who cannot pay bribes are tortured, exiled, or executed, their names blackened forever. But their secrets survive, in the memories of their daughters, in coded recipes smuggled in prayer books, in the silent exchange of glances across crowded markets. Still, you can't help but see the contradiction. The same priest who condemns contraception in his sermons blesses noblemen's wives behind closed doors, offering them imported herbs for a generous donation. In the manor kitchens, the servants joke about which lady will disappear first. Gone to the city for rest, they say, but everyone knows the real reason. Wealth buys discretion, even if it can't buy safety. The poor, meanwhile, are left to gamble with whatever knowledge the authorities have not managed to root out. The recipes grow more fragmented, more dangerous with every lost midwife. You count the deaths in your head. You know the names, the faces, the stories whispered by the living about the dead. Each birth is a risk, each failed remedy, a tragedy. Yet nothing changes. The villagers gather in the evenings to share food and news, but the real conversations happen in doorways, behind drawn curtains. The threat of exposure is constant. The need for secrecy suffocates. And when the cost grows too high, the network collapses. You see it now. The midwife's absence has left the village exposed, desperate. The women barter for scraps of knowledge, trading bread and wool for a single dried leaf, a rumor, a hope. But here's the turning point. You watch the last of the hidden herb caches go up in smoke, the smell bitter in your nose. For the first time, you wonder if there will be anyone left who remembers how to survive. The young girls watch with wide eyes, learning a lesson older than the church. That power is built on erasure, and that survival often means silence. Still, the need persists. Another girl comes in the night, face pale with fever. Her mother, out of options, tries a brew too strong for a child's body. You hold her hand as the convulsions begin, praying that the screams don't draw the priest's attention. When it is over, there is only silence, the terrible silence of survival paid for with blood. And the cycle begins again. The rich retreat behind stone walls. The poor hide in the shadows. The church congratulates itself on another victory. But you know what they refuse to admit, that each act of destruction only buries the knowledge deeper, pushing it further from light, making it more dangerous each time it surfaces. The world narrows, the secrets shrink, but the need never fades. You find yourself at the window again, watching the mist, counting the losses, wondering if you will be the next to risk everything for the hope of one more day. The final lesson is clear. When survival depends on forbidden knowledge, erasure is the deadliest weapon of all, and the consequences of forgetting are only beginning to unfold. The air inside your cottage is thick, oppressive, heavy with the smell of smoke, blood, and the acrid stench of failed remedies. You pace the dirt floor, your arms wrapped around your ribs as if you could hold your insides together by sheer will. Across the village, the church bell tolls, slow and mournful. Another woman has died, her name whispered in passing, already fading, another secret buried beneath layers of shame. You know her story. Everyone does. She took too much of the wrong herb, or not enough of the right one, or simply tried too late. The details blur, but the horror never fades. You watch as a small procession winds its way to the graveyard. The men carry the body, the women walk behind, heads bowed, lips pressed tight. There are no tears, only silence, a silence born of exhaustion, fear, and the knowledge that it could be any of you next. The priest mutters a quick blessing, eyes averted. He's seen too many of these funerals. No one asks questions. No one wants to hear the answers. Inside the circle of women, the fear grows sharper, more desperate. Each death is a warning. Each miscarriage, a lesson in pain. The old remedies become more dangerous with every new loss. Some women, driven to the edge by hunger or terror, try even darker cures. You hear stories of infanticide, whispers never spoken aloud, of mothers who take the ultimate risk, trading one life for the slim hope of saving the rest of their family. You want to judge, but you understand. In a world where another mouth to feed means starvation, every choice is a gamble with no winners. But here's where it turns truly nightmarish. The symptoms grow more gruesome with each attempt at prevention. Women develop fevers that never break, shivering in their beds for days before death comes as a mercy. Others lose their minds, their thoughts spiraling into terror and confusion. Some bleed for weeks, their bodies hollowed out, their faces gaunt and gray as the sky. You tend to them as best you can, changing rags, muttering prayers, sharing what little knowledge remains. But your hands are tied by ignorance and fear, and you know that nothing you do is enough. Historical records from 15th century England describe this hidden plague. Coroners list the deaths of women barely out of childhood, their bodies marked by the unmistakable signs of poisoning. Gums blackened, teeth rotted, bones brittle as ash. The official cause is always female weakness, but you know the truth. The evidence lies in every home, every graveyard, every whispered warning passed from mother to daughter. Still, the cycle repeats. The church preaches that suffering is proof of virtue, that death is the price of disobedience, that only sinners seek to control what God has ordained. Each new funeral is twisted into a sermon, each act of survival painted as rebellion against heaven. The village listens in uneasy silence. Some believe, most pretend, all are trapped, but the cruelty doesn't stop at the church door. The men reinforce what the pulpit commands. If you confess your fears, your doubts, your secret attempts at prevention, you risk a beating or worse. The law offers no protection. Your choices are submission or defiance, obedience or death. And when the worst happens, when a woman dies from a remedy, or an act of despair, the blame is always hers alone. You watch the next generation of girls, their eyes wide and frightened, learning the old songs, the coded recipes, the dangers wrapped in lullabies. You want to protect them, to teach them everything you know, but you also want to spare them the pain of knowledge. Yet ignorance is its own form of death, and the secrets refuse to die. There are moments, in the darkest hours, when you dream of a world without these dangers. A world where knowledge is shared openly, where medicine heals instead of harms, where survival is not a crime. But dawn always breaks, harsh and cold, and the cycle begins again. The pressure to survive, to remember, to pass on the forbidden wisdom grows with every loss. You become the keeper of secrets, the last link in a chain of resistance forged in desperation. But the links are breaking, one by one. The stories are fading, the remedies growing more dangerous, the consequences more deadly. The horror is not only in the dying, it is in the living, in the fear, in the endless repetition of pain. Still, you gather with the other women in the shadows, sharing what little you know, refusing to let the last fragments of knowledge be lost. For now, survival depends on risking everything, knowing that tomorrow another name will be whispered, another grave dug, another secret erased. And the most terrible truth of all, the world beyond your village has already forgotten the price you pay. The horror has become routine, normalized, invisible, unstoppable. But you are not finished. Not yet. You will carry the secrets as long as you can. You will teach the girls what the church tries to erase. And you will hold on to hope, thin, flickering, but alive, that someday someone will remember why so many women died and why the cycle must finally be broken. You see them in your dreams first, bodies wrapped in linen, faces hidden, carried through muddy streets toward the churchyard. They are your friends, your sisters, your daughters, each one a casualty of knowledge turned lethal, of desperation punished as sin. Dawn breaks gray and cold as you make your way past the rows of fresh graves. Some are marked, most are not. Beneath the earth lie women who risked everything to survive, victims not just of nature, but of the system that made their survival a crime. Inside the village, life carries on. Children's laughter echoes down alleys. Men bargain over grain. The priest recites prayers from his pulpit, never naming the lost. But you see the signs everywhere. Widowers growing younger, mothers missing from doorways, girls turning silent after a single night of fever. You carry their stories in your bones, an unspoken history written in pain. Sometimes, when you look at your hands, you wonder how many secrets they hold. How many lives you failed to save, how many dangers you have passed on in hope or in fear. But tonight, the horror reaches its peak. You sit by the fire with the oldest women in the village, listening to tales too terrible for daylight. One remembers the winter of famine, when every household lost a daughter. Another tells how she watched her mother's skin turn yellow and her mind slip away after swallowing the doctor's powder, a dose of mercury prescribed as medicine. Someone else recalls her cousin's madness, her eyes wild and mouth full of blood, after trying a new cure for the 5th time in a year. The stories overlap, the pain universal. Each woman carries her own chapter of the same tragedy. But the truth is deeper, more chilling. You learn of the archaeologists who, centuries later, uncover skeletons of young women in village cemeteries, bones marked with the unmistakable signs of lead and mercury poisoning, spines warped by infection, teeth blackened and crumbling. In 2019, researchers at the University of York analyzed the remains, finding heavy metals in the bones, evidence of toxic remedies meant to prevent life, but which only hastened death. The proof is etched into the very bodies that once walked your world. Final, inescapable testimony to the price paid for forbidden knowledge. And yet, for all this suffering, nothing changes. The church bells still toll, marking the hours with indifference. The laws remain, condemning any woman who seeks to control her own fate. The men of the village enforce the rules, parroting sermons that make your grief a sin. The cycle repeats, generation after generation, each woman inheriting the same choice: risk everything or surrender to a life that is not your own. You understand finally that the system is not broken. It works exactly as intended. The knowledge is pushed deeper, forced into darkness, growing more dangerous with each passing year. The women who survive do so by hiding, by lying, by passing secrets hand to hand beneath the notice of those in power. The rest are lost, unnamed and unmourned, their deaths serving as warnings to the next generation. The world calls it order. You know it as a quiet, sanctioned massacre. And yet, in the darkest corners, something endures. The chain of memory is never quite broken. In each whispered recipe, each warning shared by candlelight, each act of kindness between women, there is resistance, a fragile defiance that refuses to die. You teach the girls what you can. Show them which leaves to avoid, which powders to fear. You tell the stories, even when you can barely speak them aloud. For as long as you remember, the truth will survive, even if only in fragments. Now you step outside, the night cold and clear. Above you the stars wheel silently, indifferent to the suffering below. You take a breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down, and wonder if anyone will ever know how many women vanished into these shadows, how many gambled their lives for a chance at freedom. The church bells toll midnight. Somewhere, a baby cries. Somewhere else, a woman waits in silence, hope and terror tangled in her heart. You came into this story believing that medieval contraception was nothing more than superstition and ignorance. Now you leave understanding that it was a system, a machine of control fueled by fear that killed more than it protected. If this journey into history's darkest corners has awakened your appetite for truth, subscribe now to keep uncovering the stories that textbooks refuse to tell. Because only by remembering the lost, by facing what was buried, can we hope to break the cycle that still echoes in the silence between each tolling bell.